Welcome to Channel's Business Globe with me, Juliana Olayinka, reporting from just outside the Palace of Westminster in central London, where global power, policy and markets intersect. Coming up on today's show, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer faces mounting pressure as the Peter Mandelson vetting scandal deepens, with questions over national security, ministerial accountability and growing unrest inside Labour. As criticism spreads from opposition parties to senior civil servants, what does this mean for Starmer's leadership and political future? We take a closer look. And Akwa Ibom State secures full international status for Victor Atta International Airport as Governor Pastor Umar Eno pushes an ambitious investment drive across aviation, agriculture, healthcare and tourism. With major infrastructure projects reshaping the state's economic future, what does this mean for trade, jobs and long-term growth? I speak with His Excellency Pastor Umar Eno, Governor of Akwa Ibom State. Then later, I'll be looking back at some of the biggest business news stories of the week. But first, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer is facing growing pressure as the Peter Mandelson vetting scandal deepens, with criticism now coming from opposition parties, Labour MPs and senior civil servants. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch used Prime Minister's questions to accuse the Prime Minister of breaking the ministerial code, calling the issue one of national security over Lord Mandelson's appointment as Britain's ambassador to Washington. She challenged Starmer on contradictions surrounding Mandelson's security clearance, his past links to Jeffrey Epstein and reported connections to Russian defence-linked company Starmer. Sir Keir insists he was not told Mandelson had failed security vetting before taking up the post, describing it as staggering that officials approved clearance against security advice without informing him or senior ministers. But the backlash is now spreading within Labour, with some MPs accusing Number 10 of creating a toxic culture and mishandling the appointment. Former Foreign Office Permanent Secretary Sir Ollie Robbins, who was dismissed just last week, told MPs he was under constant pressure from Downing Street to approve Mandelson's clearance and described the approach to vetting as dismissive. His removal has also sparked concern across Whitehall, with the Civil Service Union warning the Prime Minister's actions risk damaging trust between ministers and senior officials. With local elections approaching and more Mandelson files still expected, the row is becoming one of the biggest political tests of Starmer's premiership.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With permission, I'd like to provide the House with information that I now have about the appointment of Peter Mandelson as our ambassador to the United States. But, Mr. Speaker, before I go into the details, I want to be very clear with this House that while this statement will focus on the process surrounding Peter Mandelson's vetting and appointment, at the heart of this, there is also a judgment I made that was wrong. I should not have appointed Peter Mandelson. I take responsibility for that decision, and I apologise again to the victims of the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, who were clearly failed by my decision. Mr. Speaker, last Tuesday evening, the 14th of April, I found out for the first time that on the 29th of January 2025, before Peter Mandelson took up his position as ambassador, the Foreign Office officials granted him developed vetting clearance against the specific recommendation of the United Kingdom security vetting that developed vetting clearance should be denied. Not only that, the Foreign Office officials who made that decision did not pass this information to me, to the Foreign Secretary, to her predecessor, the Deputy Prime Minister, to any other minister, or even to the former Cabinet Secretary, Sir Chris Wormold. I found this staggering, and therefore last Tuesday I immediately instructed officials in Downing Street and the Cabinet Office to urgently establish the facts on my authority. I wanted to know who made the decision, on what basis, who knew, and Mr. Speaker, I wanted that information for the precise and explicit purpose of updating this House, because this is information I should have had a long time ago. And it is information that this House should have had a long time ago. It is information that I and the House had the right to know. I will now set out a full timeline of the events in the Peter Mandelson process, including from the fact-finding exercise I instructed last Tuesday. Before doing so, I want to remind and reassure the House that the Government will comply fully with the humble address motion of the 4th of February. Mr. Speaker, in December 2024, I was in the process of appointing a new ambassador for Washington. A due diligence exercise was conducted by the Cabinet Office into Peter Mandelson's suitability, including questions put to him by my staff in Number 10. Peter Mandelson answered those questions on the 10th of December, and I received final advice on the due diligence process on the 11th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Prime Minister for advance sight of his statement. His reputation is at stake. Everyone is watching. It is finally time for the truth. Earlier today, Mr. Speaker, Downing Street admitted that the Prime Minister inadvertently misled the House. The Prime Minister has chosen not to repeat that from the dispatch box. I will remind him that under the Ministerial Code, he has a duty to correct the record at the earliest opportunity. The Prime Minister says he only found out on Tuesday that Peter Mandelson failed the security vetting. The earliest opportunity to correct the record was Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday, almost a week ago. This is a breach of the Ministerial Code. Under that code, he is bound to be as open as possible with Parliament and the public in answering questions today. So let me start with what we do know. We know the Prime Minister personally appointed Peter Mandelson to be our ambassador to the United States. We know that Mandelson had a close relationship with a convicted paedophile. We know that he had concerning links with Russia and China, links that had already raised red flags. We know that the Prime Minister announced the appointment before vetting was complete, an extraordinary and unprecedented step for the role of US ambassador. The Prime Minister says that it was usual for this because it was a political appointment. So I will remind him and the rest of the Labour front bench who were heckling that Peter Mandelson was a politician who had been sacked twice from government for lying. That meant he should have gone through the full security process. And we also know, finally, Mr. Speaker, that when Peter Mandelson failed the security vetting, he was allowed to continue in the role with access to top-secret intelligence and security information.
Akwa Ibom State is positioning itself as one of Nigeria's fastest-rising investment destinations, with Governor Pastor Umar Eno driving an ambitious push across aviation, agriculture, healthcare and tourism. Victor Atta International Airport has now secured full international status, opening the door for direct global operations as Ibom Air prepares for wider expansion, while the surrounding aviation village is being developed to strengthen trade and connectivity. Across the state, more than 1,300 kilometres of roads and 32 bridges have been delivered, alongside major investments in agriculture, including a tractor leasing programme designed to support farmers and boost food production. The administration has also prioritised social welfare, clearing pension backlogs, raising the minimum wage to 80,000 naira and expanding support for vulnerable households. Governor Eno says the goal is simple: to make Akwa Ibom one of Nigeria's leading states for business, tourism and long-term growth. I sat down with His Excellency Pastor Umar Eno, Governor of Akwa Ibom State. Your Excellency, when you close your eyes and picture Akwa Ibom at its very, very best, what do you see?
Calm, collected, peaceful, radiant, lush, blessed state. That's what I see.
We stood together earlier today at the aviation village. We also had a look at the CNG bus terminal, and we also saw the reclamation areas. very completely different visions. I want to start by asking about something that none of these locations answered. When the day is over and it's quiet, what actually drives you?
What drives me, if I tell you, will you believe me? The Spirit of God. That's what drives me. You know, God himself is a creative being. The Bible said, you know, the face of the earth was faced with confusion, and the Spirit moved over it and he started creating. And then all of us are made of God. We're made in his likeness, in his image. And so that Spirit drives you, enables you, opens your mind to the endless and limitless possibilities of what God can do and who God is. So that's what drives me.
You've said you would wish you had been governor yesterday. With over 80 priority projects delivered, what does that urgency feel like now compared to when you took office 3 years ago?
There's still a sense of urgency. We've not reached where we should be. We've not reached where I think we ought to be. While I give so much credit to our past leaders, and we've been very blessed as a state to have them, you'll discover that we are so much in a hurry to get to where all of this investment begins to give back to the state and to the people. That's why we're in a hurry.
Today alone, I saw 3 projects that would be headline news in any country around the world, including the agricultural equipment leasing facility. The aviation village is preparing for international flights. You've got a fleet of 25 tractors that are going to be leased by farmers who could never have afforded them. And the CMG mass transit terminal is under construction. You're governing across every sector simultaneously. How do you hold all of these projects in your head all at once?
Like I said to you, dream. God is the enabler of all dreams. And you have the right people. Every leader is surrounded by people, and the people surrounding that leader determines how far he will go. Again, I've been blessed to be surrounded by people who have come to know and accept the vision that we run, the Arise agenda, and they know that we're running against time. So everyone that God has placed everywhere, they're doing their best to ensure that we catch up with the vision, because we have a review session every now and then. And of course, you come to that review session as a delivery advisor, or as a commissioner, or as someone taking responsibility. You come to give an account of how the vision is progressing. And so it's that's how it goes. All of these things are put together. Yes, you have the vision in line with the Arise blueprint, but we have the right people, the right places, doing the right things, and that's why we're able to move.
Let's focus on the elderly. You paid off over 80 billion in pension and gratuity backlogs and introduced an 80,000 naira minimum wage. When you think about the workers and retirees of Akwa Ibom, what did you want them to feel when those payments landed?
They should be happy. They should feel thankful to God and blessing to the state that they served. You know, each day those retirees were not paid. Some of them have died, unfortunately. They're bitter, they are not happy. I don't feel it speaks well for the state. They're not saying a blessing over the state, that they've served for 35 years and then they don't have pensions. Some of them have medical bills, you know, and at the time we didn't have medical insurance. And so I honestly believe that I wanted them to feel happy, feel safer, and have the confidence that they served a state that just turns back and give them their due. This is what belongs to them, and we should actually build to take care of these people.
Coming up on Channel's Business Global, from aviation to hospitality, Akwa Ibom State is expanding its tourism economy as part of a broader plan to drive investment beyond oil. Can business travel, conferences and destination tourism become the next major growth engine for the state? And I'll be looking back at some of the biggest business news stories of the week. All of this after the break. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, reporting from just outside the Palace of Westminster in central London, where global power, policy and markets intersect. In a moment, I'll be sharing more from my interview with His Excellency Pastor Umo Eno, Governor of Akwa Ibom State. But until then, here's a breakdown of some of the biggest business news stories of the week. Here in the UK, inflation has risen sharply to 3.3% as the Middle East conflict pushes up the cost of living. New figures from the Office for National Statistics show inflation climbed from 3% in February, marking the first increase since December and the first full reading to reflect the impact of higher global oil and gas prices. Petrol prices rose by 8.6 pence per litre in March, while diesel jumped by 17.6 pence, with both now at their highest levels in months. Economists warn inflation could rise further this year, with the Bank of England now expected to keep interest rates higher for longer. Apple has officially named John Ternus as its next chief executive officer, marking one of the most closely watched leadership transitions in global technology. Ternus, currently Apple's head of hardware engineering, will take over from September 1st, becoming the first Apple chief executive officer whose career has been built entirely in hardware development. He has spent more than 2 decades at the company and played a central role in the development of the iPhone, iPad, Mac, and most recently, Apple's push into next-generation devices and artificial intelligence. Investors will now be watching closely as Ternus takes on Apple's next major challenge, accelerating its AI strategy and delivering the company's next wave of flagship products. A new global prosperity index has named Norway the richest country in the world for 2026, ahead of Ireland and Luxembourg. Unlike traditional rankings based purely on GDP, the report measures how wealth translates into daily life, combining income, inequality, socio-mobility and long-term development. That leaves major economies like the United States, France and Germany outside the top 10, with the US ranked 17th and France 20th. The findings suggest that in 2026, prosperity is being measured less by output and more by how widely economic success is shared. Tourism is becoming a major part of Akwa Ibom State's economic strategy as the government looks to reduce dependence on oil and build new sources of long-term revenue. The state is investing heavily in hospitality and business tourism, with projects including the Arise Palm Resort, a 5,000 capacity convention centre, a 20,000 capacity amphitheatre and continued expansion around Victor Atta International Airport. Officials say the goal is to position Akwa Ibom as a destination for conferences, events and regional travel, while supporting wider investment across transport, hospitality and services.
So what we're looking at now is a Rice Palm Resort. This is a complete tourism and leisure park developed, conceptualized by His Excellency Governor Umo. The whole of this space was a complete gully, as you could see. Everything here is reclaimed. You could see the palms there. Right here, you can see the pools and then the artificial lakes with the floating bars. We have restaurants, and lounges. We have the gaming area. We have the children's playground. We have the sporting arena. And then we have the golf course, 9-hole golf course. Here's the golf house right here coming up. And then we have well-appointed 20 apartments, 3 bedrooms, 5, 2 bedrooms, 15, 20 there, administrative building, there's a banqueting facility, and of course, the service area, security. So the reason why His Excellency thought of, it wasn't just enough to reclaim this and stabilize the whole and get the ecological remediation. So if we spend all of that money, so what do we do with it? Should the money just be put on the ground and left? He decided to turn this into a mini Disney. He turned it into a mini Disney because he wants people to come here and have themselves and their families relax. So right here in this resort, there's something for everyone. There's something for adults, there's something for children, there's something for for the Gen Zs, and for anyone you can think about.
Governor Pastor Umo Eno says tourism must be treated as serious economic infrastructure, arguing that improved connectivity through Ibom Air and the airport's new international status will help attract both visitors and investors. The administration is also linking tourism to broader economic planning with new transport systems, urban development and healthcare infrastructure designed to support a more diverse economy.
The ambition is to make our state one of the leading states in this country. You can approach the world from Akwa Ibom and the international airport and all our facilities. What we try to do as you look around is to make it world class. Let's compete. Let's drive tourism. Let's make Akwa Ibom a tourist destination of choice. Let's provide. What does it take to, how did Dubai do it? You know, and I get fascinated. If it was my office, you see the memos of the Sheikh of Dubai, and you see how 30 years ago it was just a desert. You know the story than I do. But it takes the ingenuity, the creative mind, vision, hard work of someone to put all that together. Every step we take inches closer to that realization that Akwa Ibom is blessed by God and we're positioned like any other state, any other subnational, to become a leading subnational in this country. And that's where we're going. We're ready for business. We're ready to receive them, to invest, for them to invest. We have a stable state running basically stable economy, nice people. All of this could turn to the social capital that we have. And so whether it is on the Ibom Deep Sea Port, or it is a power generation and distribution, or whether it's agriculture, we stand ready to receive investors. And that's why we're creating all these infrastructures so that when they come around, they won't be bothered about those. If government would have put in place this infrastructure and they could just invest in the state. That's why we are opening up and we're thinking through this deliberately, putting things in place, because we know we place God over everything else in this state. And we know that He's the author of peace. I believe absolutely that when God oversees a place and you bring Him to be in charge, He directs. Generally, the state remains peaceful because of the people, the disposition of the people. Don't forget that we've been through our own phase of challenges, and we know that we can count our losses those times. So it's better now we sit at the table, discuss issues, and we also understand that without security, no investor will stay here. Not even indigenes would like to stay here. So I think it's beginning to gain traction, and it's in the consciousness of all of us that we need to live together. And maybe it also has to do with the style of leadership in the state. You run and try as much as possible to run an inclusive government where opinion of others matters, where you sacrifice to accommodate other people. You can work together harmoniously. Like we say in Akwa Ibom, we run a United States of Akwa Ibom. We go under the slogan of Akwa Ibom United.
Well, sadly, that's all we have time for today. But as always, do get in touch with your comments and suggestions. I'll see you at the same time next week for more in-depth business analysis on Channel's Business Global. Goodbye.